Thank you for tuning in to the Interactive Indies podcast. I am your host, Daniel Voss. I'm the administrator of IGDA Winnipeg, representative of the Winnipeg Game Collective, and I don't really know what else. I guess we'll just kind of get into it. And
all around awesome dude.
All around awesome dude. I'm excited for this recording because I feel like you have a lot of insight into the community. Kert Gartner, do you want to sort of give people a quick introduction of who you are?
Oh my gosh. Hi, I'm Kert Gartner. I sit in my basement and I make video game trailers right now, so that's what I do. But yeah, I've been around for a while. It's been quite the journey.
So I was saying, like, before we were recording, I was looking forward to talk to you because you have that sort of broad view that I lack,
right?
Because I got involved in the community in 2014, and anytime I went through like my archives and like through Google and like looking for different things from back in the day, your name would like pretty routinely pop up. Mm-hmm. It's like a consistent pillar or member or whatever you want to say of the community. I think like a lot of people know you for like game trailers and the VR trailers and all that stuff you do, and I would love to get into that as well. Yeah. But like I think the parts that people don't know about you are probably more interesting. So let's kind of like take it like back to the quote unquote origin stories of Kert Gartner.
Oh my gosh. Back when I was a wee lad. Yes.
So I remember anytime you've done presentations, you always have like pictures of you as a kid and like these like the cliche Nintendo posters and like your whole setup. So I'm gonna start there.
Les had this great saying one time. He's like, I didn't know how deep your nerd roots ran, but they go deep. And I'm like, yeah, they pretty much do. So, I don't know how far back you really want to go, but I mean, like, I've always been into video. Like, I was a Nintendo kid, in the 80s. Just, I ate, lived, and breathed video games. That's all I did, right? Like, morning and night, I would read Nintendo Power, cover to cover, Electronic Gaming Monthly, GamePro, I would have just absorbed any part of video game culture that I could back then, which was a totally different thing. And like, I think, when I was a kid, like in high school and stuff, like my two dream jobs were like working at like ILM, doing like special effects for movies. And then my other dream was like working at Nintendo doing, I have no idea what,
Working at Nintendo's good enough.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I had no idea, like, what could I even do at Nintendo, right? Like, it was just like this vague kind of concept, right? But, where I am now, kind of like looking back, I totally feel like in a way I've hit both of those things, although I've never worked at Nintendo or ILM. I feel like I've gotten that experience, which has been kind of nice. So
you've worked with Nintendo, haven't? Like, have you made
not directly? No,
Switch trailers?
Well, I've done Switch trailers, but I mean
that counts.
Yeah, I've talked to over email with people with at Nintendo .com email addresses, but I don't really think that counts.
Okay, right, fair enough.
Yeah.
So where did that come from? Did you like get that from your like parents were into technology?
Yeah, in a way, I guess. My dad probably and my grandpa were probably the two sort of like main parts of that. I mean, like my grandpa had, I can't even remember what kind of Atari computer it was, but it was like an Atari, not like a video game console like the 2600, but like an Atari like computer where you had like a cartridge with like BASIC in it and you put that in. And he had one of those at his apartment. And, I would go visit the grandparents and my grandpa would like show me the computer and we would like mess around with that. And my cousin had like an old, like, it wasn't a Commodore. Maybe it was a Commodore. I can't remember. And so we would play around with a Commodore computer. I had like exposure to that stuff, and I still remember like there was a computer store inside of like the Unicity Mall when it was actually a mall, not the thing that it is now. And there was like a Mac Plus, not a Mac Plus. Yeah, one of the first, like Mac SE, Mac Plus, one of the first ones there, right? And my dad brought me to the store and we would use Mac Paint and I'd be like, what? And so just like, back then, like something like Mac Paint was like mind boggling, right? And so, just having exposure to that back then was like, I think what sort of set me down that path of just loving this stuff.
That's so interesting to me because I have like no context of any of these things.
Oh yeah.
Like when you like I've heard of these things before, but when you mention Commodore, I'm like, I know that that's a thing and I know that it exists.
Yeah.
I don't know what it does.
No, well, it's crazy. It's just like, I remember the first time, like, I got my first iPod, and I'm just like, I'm on the internet in the driveway. It's just like, what the, like, I'm just going back, you know, to like the days of 14.4 modems and dial-up to where we are now. Like, watching that whole progression, it's insane. It's like, it's insane that any of this works, first of all. Yeah. And then it's just insane to see like how far we've come in such a short period of time. And I'm still like fascinated. Like when all the VR stuff was coming out, you know, like 2 years ago, it was just like, holy crap, like this is amazing. And now it's just oh yeah, VR, whatever. You know, but it's kind of like, it's just so neat to see all these new technologies like still coming up, and just, I still get excited by it.
Last night when I was like sort of diving through the archives, I found the first Pechakucha that you had spoken with, and you were talking about how your pen now can have like, I can't remember what you said, like 2 gigabytes of like data or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting to think now it's like on your fingertip you could have a terabyte of data.
Oh, I know, it's insane. It's totally nuts. It's just,
and the interesting thing to me is like, I have some perspective on that, but yours is like a level above that because, you know, just because of your experience. And
yeah, now I see my kids, it's just like, yeah, Dad, I need the new Ninjago episodes. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll go downstairs, I'll find a torrent for them. And it's like, I start downloading them. It's like, well, why can't we watch them now? And I'm like, dude, it's just like, it takes, you don't know how this whole thing works. You know, I got to wait for all the seeds and stuff, but you can't just watch it instantaneously. So I'm like trying to teach patience to like my 6-year-old who now expects everything to be absolutely instantaneous is this battle that we are, you know, still, no, I shouldn't call it a battle, but it's like, you know, this thing we're still trying to figure out between us. So,
so everything that you picked up in terms of the industries you're in and your interest, you picked that up from your father and your grandpa?
Yeah, like I think they were the main two people that sort of exposed me to it. And I mean, I think the first computer we ever had in our house after that Atari, which I think my grandpa gave to us, we bought our Mac LC that had, I think, 4 megabytes of RAM and a 40 megabyte hard drive. No, wait, what did I say? 4 megabytes of RAM? Yeah, I think that was right. A 40 megabyte hard drive? That sounds about right for the time. and now I think about it, it's like, yeah, you can download 40 megabytes over your phone in a second. And it's just like, wow. And I think about all the floppies I had to like swap to do that. So yeah, I've been messing around with this stuff ever since, you know, and it just, you know, I remember, you know, I'm not going to get, you know, not that I'll get in any trouble for this, but I mean, like you learn through pirated software and you learn through all this stuff and you see like, you know, every day my dad would come home from work and I'd be like, hey, what did you bring home today? Like when you bring home a floppy, it's like, here's some new games that were being passed around at the office or whatever, right? And we'd stick those in and I just dive and just consume just as like much of this stuff as I can. And I have to sort of give it to my parents a bit because it's like, you know, they just let me do this. Like I was probably like, I would never let my kid be on the computer as much as my parents let me be on the computer. But I mean, things are different now, right? But I mean, they just let me eat this stuff up. And I think I would not be where I am today if it wasn't just being able to just be all consumed by this stuff back in the day, especially as it was all growing, you know, as fast as it was back then. Okay.
So it's clear, like you knew what you were passionate about. How did you kind of translate that into a career, like, or an education? Like,
I don't know. I'm still figuring that out. I'm just sort of.
What was the first step from like being a kid and being interested in Nintendo to like, okay, I want to work.
Yeah. So, it started very slowly, and it's like, you know, I think after messing around on the computer and just sort of like, you know, I'm playing games and like, at first I was like, I'm going to make games, you know, and so I was using like HyperCard to like make these little games and stuff. And I even got this thing called the Sprite Animation Toolkit, which was sort of like, I think the closest analogy would be like an SDK for like Pascal or something like that, or like an API for Pascal. And like it allowed you to create, you know, games basically. And they took a lot of the legwork out, like drawing sprites to the screen. And so I tried to figure all that stuff out. And I did programming for a while. I took programming in university for a year. And then I remember like what happened was I was making this like basically a Space Invaders clone. And there was a bug in the code where every single time you would click the mouse, it would store that click. And then when you died, it would do the Mac beep like dong, 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 every single time that you had clicked. And I'm like, I don't know how to figure this bug out. And there was no internet. There's no forums. There's nobody I can talk to.
That seems crazy to me because I rely, like I consider myself a copy-paste programmer.
Yeah.
So it's like that. can't really wrap my head around.
I know it's ridiculous. It's you couldn't even think of it today. But yeah, there was like this manual that was like an inch thick that we had printed out, and there's nothing about this in here, and so I gave up. And so I had more fun making the 3D models that I was putting in the game, and there's more instant gratification in that, right? Because it's like, oh, you make a sphere and you can put a texture on it and you can render it, and whoa, you look at that, you got something a few seconds later. And I was using this 3D program called Infinity that doesn't exist anymore. And so I started going, okay, like the 3D stuff is kind of cool. So I started playing around with that. And then again, I'm dating myself here, in like 96, there was a program downtown called the Applied Multimedia Training Center. And so basically in high school, I would go to that in the evenings, and like 2 or 3 times a week or something like that. And they would teach you like Infinity and Premiere, and I think there was some like design stuff involved with like Alta's PageMaker before it was bought by Adobe. And I think it was through all that and just like doing all these different things that I kind of figured out what I really liked. And what I really, really liked was video. And I really liked editing video and doing like 3D animation and like creating like just video content, I guess is what you would call it now, right? And so I was like, well, okay, I can't really 3D model stuff. I'm not really good at that. I can't really draw very well. You know, I just didn't really have a knack for it. And so what the other sort of thing my friends were doing is riding BMXs. And so I would start shooting BMX videos. And I did that, I think it was 96, 97, 98, around there. And the last one I did was around 2001. So I did a couple of these videos. And I just sort of gave them to my friends, you know. It's just like, hey, I'll shoot these videos. I edited them on my computer. I learned about editing. I learned Adobe After Effects, like back in like version 2 or 3, what it was back then. And just kind of like started putting these things together. And I had a lot of fun doing the video stuff. And so I kind of just gravitated more towards that over time, right? And that's kind of like phase 1. It's like, okay, I had like these BMX videos, and then it's like, well, I need to get a job doing this. And so the last BMX video I did was in like 2001, and I sold it in like Alter Ego Sports and like at the, what was the skate park downtown? What the hell was it called? The Edge? Is that what it was? Oh, my memory is going. Yeah. Yeah, The Edge. And so I sold it there.
So you started creating before you worked in the industry
directly. Yeah. I had to, because that's the only way you could really learn is by like giving yourself projects, just sort of like this podcast, right?
Okay, so you were able to make money from that?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not at all. No, I lost tons of money. No, it's just like I sold them in stores, but I mean like I'm selling like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of labor for a $20 BMX video, right? So no, I made like $200 or $300, but did I make any money? No, absolutely not.
Did that discourage you at all?
No. As I was like, holy crap, $200, you know? It was amazing.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It seriously was.
I feel like I can relate to that a little bit, because anytime I've gotten money for something, it like feels like the most amazing thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I don't even like acknowledge all the work that went into it is like substantially more than the dollar value, but it doesn't matter, because like it's recognition for your passion and for the thing that you want to do. So
yeah, I don't think I would do that now. Now that I got a mortgage and 2 kids, I don't think that would be what I would do. But no, but I mean, I did get money for it, but I mean, it wasn't like anything, right? It was just barely. It was a couple $100 if I remember right. But then, so anyway, this is what ended up happening. So the way I sort of got like my first like real job, which was at 8-Channel Manitoba way back in the day before it was City TV. It was prior to that, it was like MTN, right? This is a ridiculous story, but this is honest to God exactly how it happened. So it's like riding BMX, my friend Graham, his girlfriend Vanessa had a brother, and so I had this is like the ridiculous chain of people.
We need a mind map.
Oh, we need like like the things on the wall, with all the faces, and it's like, oh, you killed this guy. Yeah, it's mapped all over Winnipeg. But yeah, basically what it was is I had a crush on my friend's girlfriend, and so I started hanging out with her. And she introduced me to her brother, who was going to Red River at the time. And now like something like DMD did not exist like way back then. It was all like purely graphic design stuff. And it was on like I don't even know if they have a campus anymore. It was like on like Notre Dame, like North Notre Dame. There was like a school there. Yeah. Anyway, they all went to school there. And so her brother introduced me to another girl named Melissa Best, who was also in the graphic design stuff. And she got a job at 8-Channel. And she was in their commercial division. And basically she was like the graphics person and would do like the graphics, quote unquote graphics. I'm doing air quotes here for for all the commercials. And like this was all like local TV commercials. And it was great. So anyway, the long story short, she ended up quitting to go to Frantic Films, which was just sort of starting up, and they were doing movie visual effects and stuff. So she quit, and she needed to find somebody to replace her. And so she started asking her friends. And so since she knew Sean Green, which was Vanessa Green's girlfriend, and she knew me, that's how the whole connection was made, right? And so she recommended me, and I went for my interview, and I basically had all my BMX videos. I'm like, here's my BMX videos. I did have a portfolio with some like motion graphics stuff, which was not super hot, and the stuff I did at that Applied Multimedia Training Center. And I got hired. And so I worked there for a year, and it was like, honest to God, one of the best jobs I've ever had. I loved it there. I loved every minute. It's like you woke up in the morning, you got to get there super early. It was like ridiculous. Like there were some days where I would literally come into work and just lock the door and like sleep for an hour because it was like I had to be there at like 8 or something. And I'm like, 19, 20, I can't remember how old I was, 21, 22, around there. And so I'm like doing this job and, you're out late or whatever. And it's just like, oh my God, you have to get to work so early. But they had the big breakfast. I don't know if you remember that, but man, the big breakfast was great. And they always had chefs on the big breakfast. And so they would cook in the studio downstairs and the whole studio would smell like breakfast. And then after the show was over, everyone would descend with their plates. And so then we got to eat the big breakfast and we all gotten kind of crap about that. But I don't know. It was great because like 8 Channel back then was like, it was like Play School, like my kid's first TV station, right? So everybody was in like their 20s. Everyone was just having fun, and we were running a bloody TV station, right? And
you're pretty young at the time.
Oh yeah, I was in my early 20s then, and it was great. But the thing about 8 Channel, the thing that I got out of that is basically you had to create a commercial from start to finish in 3 hours. It's just like you had like the producers there could book you for like the morning or afternoon session. And so you kind of had these 3-hour slots and that was all the budget allowed for. So you had to create all the graphics or do an entire commercial in a lot of cases in 3 hours. And it had to be done. Like that was it. And so I learned to work really, really fast and like work with an editor and like, just working with different producers and stuff and different people and different styles and different kind of ways of, I don't know. It was just really, it was my first job, right? First real job doing this stuff. And,
not your first job.
No, that wasn't my first job, but that was like my first video job.
Right.
Yeah, my first job was doing like phone tech support for AT&T. It's like, welcome to AT&T WorldNet Service. My name is Kurt. Can I have your name and phone number, please? And I did like max.
That's still.
Oh yeah, no, I probably said it a million times, so it's ingrained in there.
I definitely have a thank you for calling Can America. How can I help you today?
Oh yeah, no, it's you say it so many times, it just gets in there, right?
I used to work at an internet pharmacy, and that's. I often find so I've worked at an internet pharmacy and it was a call center.
Yeah.
And then I've worked at Pollard Banknote.
Okay, yeah.
In QC.
Yeah.
I find that those jobs, in my personal experience, are not for a young person to be working because they just crush your soul. Like literally crush your soul. Especially the Pollard Banknote. Just because it's like it's not a bad job.
Yeah.
It's just not a job for a young person because you're working 12-hour days. Mm-hmm. You get a lot of money. Yeah. But like you kind of have to sacrifice your social life. And then there's just like so much a surprising amount of drama for like fathers and mothers that the fathers and mothers that work there. Right. And I'm just like this. I can't remember how old I was at the time, but 19 or so. And I just remember thinking to myself, is like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. Like, you guys are like, you guys have families and it's like this whole drama show. And
yeah.
But anyways.
No, I totally hear what you're saying. I mean, like back when I did it, I mean, God, what was that? Like just out of high school, pretty much. It wasn't a bad job. Like I didn't mind doing phone tech support, like, cause I was in the Mac department. Right. So like they trained, this is the funny thing, because like they trained me, when you go in, they train you on the PC side. And I was just like, oh my God, friggin' PCs. I hate PCs. It's just like, I don't know, like, and there's 50,000 things that could go wrong with dial-up internet and getting PCs. But I was like, oh, I just want to do Mac support. And literally it was the same like 6 problems over and over again. And so it's just like, I didn't even need to like look at the thing. It's just like, oh yeah, you just ask 1 or 2 key questions and you know exactly what's wrong right away. Right. And so it was pretty chill. But I mean, I didn't want to do that for my whole life, obviously. But
I think there's a lot that you can like take. Like having said that, maybe I didn't have the greatest experience in some of my jobs. At the same time, I think there are lessons or experiences that you can take away from that. Perfect example, the print factory discipline. 12-hour days. You go to work, you wake up, you do what you need to do, you go home, you come back. I worked at Boston Pizza for 9 years, which is crazy to me. I almost don't even like telling people that because it's that I'm admitting to myself that I spent way more time working somewhere that I didn't enjoy than I should have. Right. You just get comfortable and you get into a cycle. Yeah. But having said that, I learned responsibility there. I was a key holder. I did the inventory. I did scheduling and the budget. Yeah. It actually got to the point where the general manager, didn't want me doing the schedule and the budget. That was just for supervisors. Right, and I wasn't a supervisor. I just wanted more responsibility. Yeah. And I remember I would speak with my kitchen manager and he would let me do it. On the down low. Just weird to me. I'm not getting paid more money.
Yeah, I know. Real jobs are so weird like that. It's just
I'm getting more responsibility. But the general manager didn't want. I guess he just wanted supervisors doing that. So I would do it anyways. And then eventually, he would see me in the office doing the schedule, and then he'd just be like, "Oh," he'd make a comment, be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'd be working on the schedule, and then.
I think looking back, it's always easy to see, the little nuggets that you kind of picked from each job. It's like, okay, if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't have learned this skill, which kind of
exactly.
No, it's like a rich tapestry, right?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily. Everyone has their personal experience, but I'm not a big fan of when people talk about their jobs with this kind of negative attitude. I understand everyone has their personal experiences, but it's like that cliche. You can take positive experiences out of
totally.
It's kind of what you put into it. Yeah. So I don't know if you kind of got some of that.
Completely. Patience is the one thing. I still have to use patience every day with my kids. I mean, God, it's a little different than when you're dealing with an 80-year-old grandmother trying to get on the internet back in the 90s. But it's that skill is still there.
Did you ever have to deal with the cliche angry customers?
Oh yeah, all the time. Oh yeah.
I actually liked doing that. Because for me, when I get an angry old person, internet pharmacy, it's all old people. Yeah. They're for the most part, they're irrationally mad. Yeah. I never took it personally because it's just what can they possibly do? If they're yelling at me, what is that? I understand some people maybe are more sensitive, but it's not doing anything to me physically. Yeah, yeah. So I saw it as if I could take that and sort of turn that around and make them be satisfied, then it's I won. It's like a challenge.
Yeah,
or
totally.
Like that. So.
No, I had to do callbacks, which is where it's an irate customer would call, and then they would get super pissed off and hang up. And then someone would have to call them back to smooth things over and resolve it. And I had to do a couple of those. There's nothing that really sticks out in my mind, but I always remember being really nervous about doing it. It's oh my God, I got to actually call this person. It's oh, they're just going to, But in the end, it always worked out. Or at least, if I don't have any negative memories about that whole thing.
Oh, I do. I can't. I won't say the place that it was at, but I was working at a call center where a customer called in and I said, "Hey, my name is Daniel, blah, blah, blah. How can I help you?" Be like, "How does it feel to be a retarded fucking asshole?" And I was like,
nice to meet you too.
I was like, "Excuse me?" And I was ready to help her because I don't care if you're calling me whatever. Yeah. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna have my cat home. I'm gonna hang out with my friends. You're not gonna bother me. They're just So she's like, "How does it feel to be a retarded fucking asshole?" And I'm like, "Excuse me?" She's like, "How does it feel to be a retarded asshole? You motherfucking whatever. I'm gonna blow you up." And then she hung up.
Oh God.
And I'm like, okay. On to the next one.
Yeah, there's not much you can do. Some people just don't want to be helped too. There's that.
I've had, and there was another one where a customer called in, or not a customer. Yeah. I don't know. Someone communicated with us and they got stabbed and they wanted to continue working. And it's no, you need to go to the hospital. Be oh no, I wrapped it up. They did some home.
Were they in the States?
Yes, they were.
Yeah,
in the
okay,
States.
Of course.
So that was kind of interesting. I'm trying to think of another one. There was another guy that was making a racist comment, and I was I didn't respond. Like, I said, like, oh, I don't think that's appropriate. But I was like, I can help you, but like, that's not appropriate. If you're gonna continue to do that,
if you got angry Americans calling you about health issues, that's probably they got a reason to be mad.
So there's definitely like some funny stories and interesting scenarios with the call center days.
Yeah.
You worked at the call center, was like kind of your first job?
Yeah.
And then your first job in the industry was with Frantic Films?
Well, no, I would say like first was probably A Channel. And before that, it was A Channel definitely. And like before that, I actually worked at United Grain Growers as well. And I was like a sysadmin, and I learned about like print stuff there, and it's like as I was doing the BMX videos and I was learning about print stuff, I would like use their printers to like do all like the VHS jackets, and so I'd print out all the VHS jackets and I would cut them all and like glue them all together in my basement and stuff, and then shrink wrap them and give them to my friends. And so it all kind of like built on each other, right? And then I didn't want to do print, and I didn't want to work for United Grain Growers forever either. So I was kind of like looking for an out, and that's when the A Channel thing started.
So it's interesting, like when you started doing BMX videos, you're kind of just creating things, doing the thing that you are passionate about, and that translated into a job, a legitimate job in the industry, where you learned a lot from that position, like working there. So moving forward from that, how were you able to take those kind of the BMX and the Frantic Films and translate it to the next thing? And what was that next thing?
Well, that was whole when the Winnitron kind of came around, right? So it's like worked at
good. I have a lot of questions for you about the Winnitron.
So I mean, like I look back so fondly on those days, and it wasn't even that long ago. I mean, it was like 8 or 9 years ago or something at this point. But so I mean, I worked at Frantic for like 8-ish years. Doing visual effects for movies and just being like ground down by that to an extent. But like, and then I started looking for an out basically, to get out of VFX. And I worked at like just a really bad job for 3 months. And then I bounced off of that. And then I went back to Frantic in their commercial division for like a bit of a year. And then I worked at New Media Manitoba for like 5 years or something like that. But that's actually, I should really credit New Media Manitoba for this, like the whole thing. If it wasn't for that job, none of this other stuff would have happened. And so
none of the stuff that you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. And like the Winnitron probably wouldn't have happened either, and that just
because of New Media Manitoba.
Yeah, because of New Media Manitoba. So like I got the job with New Media Manitoba as like their training guy. And so like I ran the training lab and did courses and, helped out with other things here and there. But having worked in like visual effects where it's like you're literally at work like 12 hours a day, and then going to a job that it's like flexible, it's like you work from home. And
that means like that's everything, eh? Like having flexibility in your job.
It was nuts. I remember for like the first 6 months, it's like I didn't want to tell Kevin. It was just like I was sitting at home and I'd be like, I felt like I had to sit in my chair for 8 hours a day because that's what I was used to. And every time I would go get groceries or like make lunch, I would feel horribly guilty. And I still feel that now, even to an extent, but I'd say it's probably like 5% now, right. But like before it was like 95%. It's just like, what am I even doing? Like, how am I even getting paid? It's just like, it was so completely foreign to any other sort of job. Right. And, just having that flexibility in that time just allowed me to do other things, right? And like meet other people. And one of the first people I wanted to meet and met was like Alec Coloca, obviously. And I started hanging out with Alec. And I remember I saw this guy online and he had it like, his infinite ammo, and he had this game Paper Moon that he was working on. And it was like this 3D sort of like 2D sprites, but it was like 3D anaglyph you could put on the glasses and you could see it in 3D. And I was like, holy crap, like this guy's making like a real game. Like there's a person making a real game in Winnipeg.
So like that was your first sort of view of games. Like this is the entry gate to you being involved in games?
Sort of. I mean, like there was really nothing else. I mean, like Complex was around and I knew of Complex, but I knew that they were like this smaller thing, right? And like they were like working out of like Smart Park, and it seemed like
was this like a fork in the road where you went down the like Games Pass at that point because of like Alex?
Well, like I was always interested in games, right?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Obviously, right? And it's just like I just never seen anybody doing like indie game stuff in Winnipeg. It's just like, this is like 4 or 5 dudes, and this is like, this is all around like pre-Super Meat Boy and pre-Braid, like all that kind of explosion, right? And like I was really into like independent games, and like, I was into like shareware games and like games made by smaller people like back then. And I just never seen anything like that. So I was like, I have to meet this guy. Like I have to see what's going on. And so I started hanging out with Alec. And he was like starting work on Marion back then, and just like trying to get that off the ground. And I was like, I just want to like be around. Like I do video stuff. Like, can I help? Like, what can I do to sort of like help in any way here? So, I mean, like if you go way back on like Alec's YouTube, I did like his first trailer for Marion, like way back. And so then, I mean, like Alec was here, and then he did like the first like game jam where he brought in like Kyle Pulver and like Matt Wagner and like all these, people that he had known from like his scene in here. And then like I started meeting all these people, and then like just everything kind of slowly came together. And that's when like Noel came in. And
were these people like prominent in the industry at the time? Like, did you know who these people
were?
No,
I had no idea who any of these people were.
Like kind of people.
No, I had no idea who any of these people were. And I remember the first game jam, I actually never even went to it because I didn't feel like I belonged there, because it was like, I was just like a video guy. And also, at the same time, my house was flooding. So there was that. It was like this. There was a spring and there was water in my crawl space, and it's like, I got to deal with my bloody house right now. There was that as well. But at the same time, like, this is no fault of anyone's. It's just like, because I wasn't like a quote unquote game developer or whatever, right? I didn't feel like I could offer anything, right? I didn't feel like there was anything I could do to like mesh into like, cause I knew how games were made. I knew like you needed code and you needed graphics and you needed all this crap, but I didn't see how my skill set fit into that at all, right? So I was just like, I'll skip this one, right? But I'll still hang out.
I very much relate to that.
Yeah.
Just as a quick interjection.
Yeah.
I am not technically proficient at programming. I'm not technically proficient at art. And when I was trying to insert myself into the industry, into the community, whatever, like I didn't care. I just wanted to like be involved.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you're saying like you just kind of want to show up and be like, hey, I want to do something. I didn't know like where my place was, because like there's people that are focusing on programming. They're going to get the programming jobs.
Yeah.
There's people that are focusing on art since they're in high school, or in elementary school. I never did that. Yeah. So it's like, I'm starting late. I can't, if I invest the time to start now, it's like, it's not really worth the time. So I'm kind of like in this limbo where I didn't think there was a place for me, which ended up not being true.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's true for anyone.
Yeah.
It's just interesting and kind of refreshing to hear people that are established and doing something interesting for themselves, that they are kind of in that same place. Because then you can like kind of relate to them and be like, oh, I'm not the only one that's going through this stuff or feeling this way.
Yeah, totally.
But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, and it just took a while, and it just, as you hang out, like it just, things kind of just, I don't know, it just kind of all worked out. But like the thing that really, really brought it all together was the Winnitron. And I remember, like, I think after that first game jam...
that was, are you referring to Peg Jam, like the first jam? Or the Winnitron 1000 jam?
No, that was well after.
Okay.
So, no, like, this is, so...
That's the one where Indie Game the Movie did their, like, little showcase piece?
No, that one was another one that was afterwards as well, I think.
Oh, there's one before this.
Oh, yeah. No, this is
before 2010?
Oh, no, wait. This is the one that Blinkworks did the thing on. Yeah. Or, James and Lizanne. Yeah, that's that game jam. Sorry. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, this is that one. So after that one, I don't remember what exactly happened. I think I just got busy with New Media Manitoba stuff or whatever. But I just wasn't involved with anybody for a little while. And then I remember going to like a secret handshake or something like that. And Alec is like, hey, we've got this idea about working on this arcade cabinet or something. And I'm like, I am 1,000% in on whatever it is you are doing. I want in. Okay. And so like, I have a car. They didn't have cars, we can go. And then we started going like all the arcade graveyards, and we went to like, 4 or 5 places in the city back then that actually had like all these arcade cabinets. And it was awesome. I mean, like we were just sort of driving around finding stuff, and eventually we found this cabinet, and it just started hanging out with these guys more and more. We just kind of sort of figured out what we could do, right? And so Alec and Noel, they started working on the graphic stuff, and I was like, hey, Marlon designed the logo, and it's like, okay, I can get this printed, I can go talk to the guys about getting all the acrylic stuff done, and I was like, I'll do whatever manual labor stuff there is, and so I just sort of helped in whatever way I could. And then what happened was Scott Deeming, who was doing like the chiptune dance parties. This was way back. I can't even remember. Data Dance, that's what it was called. So there was the first Data Dance. It was the first chiptune party in Winnipeg. And so they were like, let's bring the Winnitron to Data Dance, and that'll kind of be like its unveiling in Winnipeg. And we were like, okay, that's a great idea. And like, we should make a trailer for this. And I was like, that is also a great idea. I can do that. I can do that. And so Alex, since he knew like Adam Saltzman, he got like a special 2-player build of Cannibalt that was only going to be on the Winnitron. So we actually had something that was like special, and the Winnitron was special, and we wanted to make a special video. And so what ended up, this is like 2 or 3 days before Data Dance, and we were like, okay, so I went home, and like Alex, like, here's Adam's thing on Skype, go nuts. And I'm like, hey Adam, can I get all the sprites for Cannibalt? And like 2 minutes later, there's everything, right? I'm like, wow, this is kind of neat. And so like I do this quick mock-up, and I'm like, this is kind of what I'm thinking. We'll do the sprites like jumping across the rooftops of Winnipeg, and it's like the middle of winter. It's like 20 or 30 below outside. And I'm like, okay, so how are we going to film these? And I'm going on Google Maps. We can get on top of this parking garage, on this parking garage. Meanwhile, I'm working with New Mini in Manitoba and trying to do their stuff on the side as well.
And that's why you're able to do those.
Well, this is exactly it, right? So yeah, if I'm doing their job, and then I'm like, okay, I got like 2 days where it's just like I can just focus on this and just put the New Media Manitoba stuff aside for a bit. And so we went out and we shot all the footage, and then I went home and I like edited it all and put it all together, and we got music, and and it ended up to, like, for 2 days worth of work, it was pretty good. And so I composited in all those sprites running across the rooftops of Winnipeg, and it was basically leveraging all that 8 years of experience in the visual effects industry and being able to work fast, like all that, experience from A-Channel, and putting it into like 2 or 3 days. So it was literally like 10 years worth of experience that got compressed into like 2 or 3 days. And then we put that trailer out, and Alec just like emailed it to Kotaku and was just like, hey, you should check this thing out. And I was like, the Vimeo URL.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, just throwing it out there. And then Vimeo got it, and then it kind of went crazy. And I think it got like in the tens of thousands of views back then, which was pretty like big for an indie game thing in Winnipeg.
Looking back, does that seem like kind of crazy to you?
Yeah,
like all these like these people independently are like successful, and they're doing these like big things, but like you went back and they're like you're working together and you're doing this and they're doing that and you're pulling this person in and pulling that person in. That seems like kind of cool.
It was super magical. Like that's the only way I can describe it. Yeah.
And you can't necessarily recreate those moments.
No, you can't.
They just kind of happen organically. Right?
Yeah, it happened super organically, and it happened organically because of things like New Media Manitoba having meetups. Like Secret Handshake was probably like a huge factor in that as well.
Yeah.
Just because they brought people together from the community that were doing interesting stuff all the time, like once a month, and so all these people kind of got to meet each other and just mingle, and then neat things kind of like pop out of that. And the Winnitron was definitely one of those. And I'm like, to this day, I'm like super, super grateful and indebted to like all of those guys. It's like Alec, Noel, Noel Berry, who went on to do like Celeste, which has done super well. And Marlon Weeb, who is now with Brace Yourself Games in Vancouver, working with Ryan Clark. And Tom Rabb, who went to work at King Games, and he's in Europe doing stuff. I kind of don't know exactly where he is now, but he's doing game. He's like a senior programmer doing game stuff.
Do you keep in contact with all these people at all?
To a degree. I mean, like Marlon definitely.
As much as you can.
Yeah, totally. Like Alec, I still talk to on Twitter and stuff every now and then. Yeah. And Noel, I just emailed him yesterday actually. Cool. And I did the trailer for Celeste as well. So I mean, like there's that connection there. And I mean, Marlon, after Marlon left Winnipeg, he started doing game trailers as well. So I mean, like I'd be sending him work and we'd be bouncing stuff back off. And when I would be working with Devolver and couldn't do something, I would send it to him. And anyway, he's not doing that anymore since he's doing video stuff full time for Brace Yourself Games. But yeah, and I mean, there's Joel Forrest as well, who's I guess now at Bold, right? Yeah. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have that Winnitron console. He's the one that drilled the holes in that piece.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Joel?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah, no, he had the metal press thing. He was the one that drilled the holes for the joysticks. Yeah,
that's crazy. Because I've talked to you like through Twitter, trying to dig it up somewhere. And I never knew that he was also involved.
Oh yeah,
like physically.
Oh yeah, no, he provided all that stuff, and I think we broke a couple bits or broke a bit on it because we used a wood one instead of a metal one or something. I could be wrong about that.
I have the original panel and the original parts.
Yeah, I know.
It's at, usually I have it just over there, but I just keep it at BitSpace now, and I bring it to all the events. So it's like
I know.
It's funny.
A piece of history is still there in that little thing.
and it's weird because it doesn't like. People might not have the context, and it doesn't matter what it is. But I think there's something nice about like it physically still exists in one form or another.
Yeah.
And that's actually a good point. What do you think now of like kind of what the Wintertron has become? Because it started as this kind of smaller thing. It was just like a local kind of machine network at the time. It wasn't sort of a global...
Yeah. I mean, like we sent like the original build to like other people. Like there was like the Wintertron in the Netherlands that like Rami and JW
Okay, so it
built.
was like international at that
time. Yeah. So like it was pretty quickly. I mean... But, I mean, the software wasn't what it is today, which is what we always wanted it to be, right? The software, this is the thing, like, it was hacked together in, like, a month, right? So everything was just, like, hard-coded for, like, file name paths. And, like, it was done to get it done for the thing. It wasn't done to make it, like... It wasn't built with expandability in mind, right?
Yeah, so what do you think about what it's turned into?
This is exactly what I was always hoped it would be.
Really?
Oh yeah, completely. I remember like back like after like we all went to like GDC, like we took the Wintertron to GDC.
I've seen YouTube videos. I think it's on your you still have it on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it might be a mine or somebody's. Yeah,
where you have the Vinebeer guys. He's doing a play-by-play. I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's not Rami, the other guy.
Oh, JW?
JW, yeah. JW. He's doing a play-by-play of Super Crate Box.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I took those videos. I remember that now. Yeah.
And they, you had also done a Q&A with James and Lizanne.
Yeah, the Wintertron was like the celebrity at the Manitoba booth. Yeah. But yeah, we hauled this thing all the way down there, and we hung out there, and that's how I met like all these game developers. I mean, like Notch, like the guy that made Minecraft, played the Wintertron. He touched those controls. Oh. And like Jonathan Blow touched those controls as well.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I've got a picture of that somewhere. Yeah, it's on my blog.
That's crazy. Somewhere. It's so like insane to me, like how, like I think when you look back at it, you kind of think to yourself like, oh, how did you do all this? You have like connections, but it's no, you just kind of like you're just a guy, and this guy's just some guy, and you message this person, and they send you a thing. Like there was no connections besides like you like the community.
Yeah. It happened really organically, and it happened well. And I mean, it's like you said, it's impossible to replicate, right? But it's just, I think all the right conditions were there, right? It's just like the right people at the right time with the time, to actually do this, and the passion to do it, and it just ended up working out. I mean, that's all you can say, right?
The crazy thing to me is that like that was born out of Winnipeg.
Yeah,
and it has like all these like different people connected to it that are now like established internationally.
Yeah.
Like Notch and all of his stuff. Like, I mean, he was...
Well, he touched it. I mean, he didn't do anything.
Maybe that's a bad...
Blessed. I don't... Yeah, now...
Let's say that's a bad example, but you know what I mean.
Jonathan Blow blessed it with forehead. Yeah, both of these people, actually, maybe we shouldn't talk about them anymore. They have... That's right.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
But, like, all the people that went to that jam, and it's nice to see some of those people have since come back, like the Finji guys. They did their presentation with Night in the Woods. Adam Saltzman had made Cannonball at Game Jam in Winnipeg, I believe, or it started.
No, I don't think it started here, no. I think he made that... I don't think that's true. I think he made it at home. I'm pretty sure he made it at home. Because he was working... I remember at that first Game Jam, he was working on something else. Some run and dash thing.
Oh, it was like a ski thing, wasn't it?
No, that was somebody else.
Oh, okay.
No, that was somebody else who was doing the ski game. I think that was Steve Swink maybe that was doing the skiing game. But anyway, no, it's just like... But I mean, those guys are great. Like Adam and Becca Saltzman are like every time I go to GDC, I try to at least get like 5 minutes and just like hug them basically for 5 minutes and just be... Because, when I look back on it, if it wasn't for like Alec, Adam and Rami... I mean, those three guys were just like, I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff if it wasn't for them. Like, I'm truly indebted to those three people on top of all the people involved with the Wintertron initially. Right. Just getting the physical thing built and actually put out there. So, yeah.
It's interesting to see how, like, the things have changed, like specifically to the Winnitron, because even now there's kind of, it seems like there's a movement within Winnipeg specifically, like to build more Winnitrons. I know Dan from BitSpace, he's building like a full-size arcade cabinet.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
He actually has Orwellatron, which was made by a guy named, I think it's Michael Legary. I
know him. Yeah.
Legary. Yeah. So Dan actually gave him that cabinet, and Dan's like reconfiguring it or whatever. But the concept of it was kind of funny. He had like a privacy statement on the side, and where it would like, you can play for free, but it's going to take your picture and your information or something. It was like a kind of cheap way. So like he's building that. Dylan has like a Boxatron kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, I love it. It's great. It's so much easier to build that now than it was back then too. Like we had like a full-size PC that I like got from Frantic, that they weren't using anymore.
I have the original pre-C parts.
That's probably the second generation, the small box.
Oh, the small box?
Yeah, that's the second generation. The first one was a full tower PC that used to be like rendered.
Oh, okay.
It was like a Sun machine.
I had that small box. I was under the impression like the parts in that are from the original Winnitron.
They are, but that's the second computer that was in there. The first one generated so much heat that we needed to put the fans on the back of the cabinet to like eject all the heat, because it was like a workstation PC in there, because it's what I could get for like $200 or something like that. Back in the day, it's like they were just offloading these old machines. So
I don't know. I find that like stuff interesting. It's just it like no one would know what it is, but I keep like I like to hang on to that stuff. Yeah. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. Half the stuff I try and find like in my like archives, I save on my computer. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Like
you turn it into a media PC or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like having like a museum of like Winnipeg game dev on my computer.
That's a cool idea.
I would like to like...
The Winnitron's a good piece of that. Too bad we couldn't get the marquee. It would be nice to have saved that.
Yeah.
It was a really nice marquee. I really liked it. We had a little LED light behind it too.
Yeah, there was some students. There was like a group of different people trying to find the original cabinet. A lot of people thought it was at like Degrees at the university there. Right. And they tried to contact the security guard.
It's probably in a dumpster somewhere long gone in the Brady landfill. The spirit lives on, though, and that's what matters.
That's true. I saw something that was actually kind of cool. This is kind of like a separate thing, probably. Great 8 Bits Show.
Oh, the Great Bit Show. Yeah.
Great Bit Show?
Yeah, what the hell was
that? That seemed like really... I saw you did like
I did a video
of it, and it seemed like really cool because it was like all this like kind of like electronics or whatever, and I don't know what it was, or if they were playing stuff, or
that was part of Nuit Blanche, and there was a guy that was Scott Deeming again. He had something. Honestly, I can't remember the details of it, but he did. So he had brought a couple people to Nuit Blanche, and there was some electronic stuff and chiptune stuff and video game-ish stuff, and that was just back in the time where it's just like I'll just do a video of it. Why not? No one else is doing it. So I went out there and just, recorded some video and brought it home. And then I remember Scott sent me a message. It's like that morning, I just decided, I'll just do the video in the morning. So I spent like 4 or 5 hours in the morning just like putting it together. I put it up on YouTube and on Vimeo or whatever, and then sent them the link. And they were like, yeah, by the time we were waking up, the video was already done. And he was just like so happy about that he could wake up and see what he did like just last night, because they didn't go to bed till like 6 a.m, like packing up all the gear and everything like that, right? So yeah, that was just another one of those things where it's just like I needed a project to do and just wanted to be involved in what was happening. Mm-hmm. So it's like, here's one way I can do that. And so that was another one of those kind of examples.
So I think I'm pretty sure we covered most of like the history of like the Winnitron and sort of your start and where that transitioned to. How do you see like the community now from what it like used to be back in the day? Because it kind of Alex was sort of coordinating game jams, and that shifted to Dylan and now including myself as well. What are your like, how do you view the community now?
Yeah, it's a good question.
How things have changed.
Well, it's a little bit harder for me to sort of explain that. I'll tell you why. But yeah, so like when after Alec, we were kind of like organizing all this stuff, and then I kind of left New Media Manitoba and to do game trailers full time, and then Alex started working on Night in the Woods more. And so there was that lull for like, a year and a bit, or, there was a lull for a while where things kind of dissipated. And it was really sad. It was just like, it was so great when we were doing all this stuff together. And honestly, I was sad about it, but it was great. And I saw Dylan and like Graham, we were sort of like picking up the slack a little bit, and sort of getting things back together. And so I think it's great. But during that whole transition time, I also became a dad. Right. So like right as I was starting to do game trailers, as I was kind of winding down things with New Media Manitoba, I had my first kid and then my second, and then I kind of went into a dad cave. And I'm just now kind of starting to come out of that and sort of see where things are, right? And so honestly, like haven't been involved with stuff as much as I would have liked. It's just like, it's those first couple years of having young kids, it takes a lot out of you. And like 9 o'clock when they're finally down to bed, all you want to do is just lay on the couch. And it's like, oh God, can I get out of bed to go to a secret handshake, or can I get to a game jam and hang out for a bit? And, I would try to. And, I did a couple talks here and there about like the VR stuff that I was doing. Mm-hmm. But it's been tough. So like, I feel that I've been really, really disconnected from what has been going on locally, and just kind of like looking at it through a telescope and being like, oh man, I'm so glad there are people still doing awesome stuff. And like, like seeing like Graham's game, or Graham and Amy's game, like Sort the Court,
right?
Like
millions and millions of like tens of millions of views on YouTube.
I know. I couldn't believe like people were doing like Sort the Court cosplay or something, or fan art and all this crazy stuff.
Everything.
And just like, well, what kills me about Sort the Court is it's basically Reigns. Like it's like, if you've ever played the mobile game Reigns, like with Devolver published, it's like, it's basically that game. Like they had that concept pretty much at the same time as those guys did. They just did it in a slightly different way. And I'm just like, damn, man, it was so close. It was just neat to see like that. Anyway, they had got a bunch of notoriety and success from that too. But I mean, it's just, it's neat to see that. And so obviously like Alex working on Night in the Woods, is a huge thing too.
This is kind of going on a little tangent here. I think one of the first things that I knew about you, or things that you were involved with, was I saw a game jam project that you made back in the day with Devin Reimer.
Oh God.
Where you did that like
the first person shooting,
the first person
thing.
smiley shooter thing.
Yeah.
Was that the first like jam game that you had done?
Well, yeah, I didn't really do much. But, that was the Heat Jam. That was the one where we were in like art space and there's no air conditioning, and it was the hottest weekend.
Quote unquote Heat Jam.
Yeah. It was dumb hot. It was just like, it was the worst. There's like, I think I remember thinking afterwards we found that place, I was like, there's no air conditioning in here, is there? And so I was like, well, it might be all right. And it was definitely not all right. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, Devin and I, basically what I did is I filmed a couple of like shots, and I 3D tracked them. And then we brought that 3D tracking data and the footage into Unity, and he found a way to play it back at like 24 or 30 frames a second or whatever it was. And you could like, we had like some objects like occluding certain things in the scene, and he did 99% of the work. And I just sort of 3D tracked the shots that he would put into the engine. But it was kind of neat. It was neat to do that. Yeah. It was like, we were trying to find a way. It's like, how can I bring, it was Devin's idea actually too, to be like, hey, let's try to do a video thing. And so we just brought it together and did that. And that was, I think, the first thing I really worked on with Devin. Like I knew Devin, from before that, from other jams and stuff. But yeah, his journey, God, you should interview Devin when he comes in. That's quite the journey that he's been on in the last 2 years.
I'm looking to like talk to, right now I'm focusing on people from the community.
Yeah.
Just because it's more accessible, but I've reached out to the game dev community in Edmonton, just to like talk to people there. Be like, what is your different Canadian communities, and then eventually I would just kind of like to spread it.
Yeah.
I would like to I'm going to talk to Graham on Monday.
Okay, awesome.
I'm going to talk to some of my friend Dylan. He works at Price Industries.
Okay, EH Price?
EH Price? No, the HVAC company?
Yeah. I work. Yeah. Well, maybe it's not called EH Price anymore.
Okay, yeah.
That's what it was when I worked there for 3 months. I had to quit. I couldn't take it.
And Noah. I'm going to talk to Noah.
Oh, that's great.
He's in Tokyo right now.
Yeah.
So like I think it'll be cool to talk to some like pillars, quote unquote, in terms of the industry. Like that's kind of how I looked at yourself and Noah. And,
Jesus.
Because you're like doing a lot of like cool stuff, and I felt like by association that brings that good things back into Winnipeg.
Right.
And
yeah, I feel bad. Like when you say that, I'm just like, oh God, that's not the way that I feel. Just because I've been in a hole, the last couple years. So it's tough. Yeah.
It's just about contributing. You don't need to necessarily be active. I think the contribution at any level is great. Yeah. I remember what my tangent was. The news, how you got the news, CTV for the Winnitron. And how back when you guys were building that, Alex reached out to Kotaku, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of I'm trying to take that same mentality, and I reached out to Hot 103 for a jam that we had done recently. And then I ended up on this sounds kind of egotistical. I don't mean Yeah. I ended up on there, and I said, hey, the community, the quality is terrible. Like, you can't hear a thing I'm saying. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. That was a fun thing, I guess. Yeah. But City News Winnipeg is great for coming out to our events. I actually had Global News and City News come to Ludum Dare 42 that at Red River. Yeah. I do not have a recording of the Global News one. John said he recorded it on his PVR, but it's like, I don't want to have to go camera, but whatever. Yeah. I just want it. I think to me that's just an example of, and this can apply to anything, just try, Like I reached out to the mayor, he didn't show up, but Global News did. Yeah. City News did.
Nothing's gonna happen if you don't try, so you might as well just shoot out as many leads as you can.
Right. Yeah. And to me, I feel like our community is super great, but I'm trying to focus more on, along with the community, sharing it to people outside of our circle, because I think we're good at sharing it inside our circle, but that's not really gonna move things forward. I think that's a positive benefit of Ubisoft moving here, is that people are they'll probably Google Winnipeg game jobs, and I feel like our community stuff will probably come up before Ubisoft, assuming you don't search Ubisoft in the search term. And that's kind of the reason why I reached out to the radio and the news, because there's so many people that still don't know about it. I was interested in games way before 2014, but for whatever reason, I only kind of clued into it at that time, and since then I've been super active. And I try and go to everything I can go to. There was an example one time I was at a jam and I was talking to Louis. I think it was at the 2015 jam or something, and a good buddy of mine came with me, and I was talking Kert Gartner, and he worked on this project, and this person, this name, and I was saying all these things, and then afterwards he says to me, how do you know all that? And I was like, I never really thought about it, but it's to me, when I care about something, it's it's not, I'm not trying to remember it. It's just
internalized. It's
just inherent.
Yeah.
So, it's been, speaking from my own personal experience, it's I've found this is my life's purpose. This podcast, Game Jams in Winnipeg, and initially I kind of struggled to find my place. I'm not there yet, or I'm not at the end. I don't think there isn't. I don't perceive there to be an end ever, because you can always get more people involved, and we've had a lot of young people come to the events, which is really great. There's this younger girl. I don't know how she is. She came to a jam. She made a jam game. She came out to the Yellow Dog with her family. Oh my God! And she's awesome. Just super into it. And I've had younger people come where I try and facilitate jamming. And there was one individual who I kind of would sit with for a little bit, and he would just play Roblox the entire time. And I'm I get you're younger. Yeah. And
it's tough. It's really, really tough. I mean, some people, they wanted, I could say they want to do it, but they don't know how, or it's it still feels it's too big of a mountain to climb. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they'll come back to it. Maybe if you bounce off of it at the beginning, maybe you'll come back to it eventually.
And I think that's where
At least they're aware of it.
Yes.
You know?
And I think that's where some of like the courses New Media Manitoba has been running with Dylan is like the game dev camps for kids. You know, that's probably, when I think back about it, that's probably a better environment for like a kid to get introduced to a jam.
Yeah, Game Jam is, you know, pretty
self-directed. It takes some discipline.
Yeah, and if you're not already on that sort of path, that could be I could totally see why someone would bounce off of it. Yeah.
But at the same time, like the girl that I've mentioned, and then there was another younger girl who I sat down with, and I like kind of sketched out a thing like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We'll make that helicopter game, you know, where it like goes up and down. Well, let's make that, and we'll start off with like a box. And how do you make it go up? So let's just say the gravity is always on, and you just press a button to turn the gravity off, and that simulates the thing. Blah 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 blah. And she was like, she just like ran with it and just made her project. And that's awesome. She didn't need like any direction. And actually, she went to Dylan's game camp, and Dylan told me that he was concerned that some of the other guys in the program might sort of be imposing in terms of direction or whatever, but that wasn't the case. He said she came in and she just steamrolled
that's awesome.
Everyone and said like she was running the shots and she was running the show.
That's great.
And to me, when I think about like moments that I've made it and things that make it all worth it is when I sat down with that girl, and then her dad at the end of the jam gave me like a gift cert to Booster Juice. I never used it. Well, I tried to. It's like there wasn't like I don't know if they like activated it or not. That doesn't matter. I didn't really care, to be honest with you. It's just like it is honestly the most rewarding thing in the world, that moment when you can give back and not necessarily just that. I
totally get it.
To me, that was like a moment, because the first person I sat down with was Corey King at Starbucks, and this like I'm just some guy. I had nothing. Like I had never been to a jam. Those are the kind of people that you want. And then I sat down with Dylan at a studio at Electric Monk at the time for like an hour or so. Like who am I? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I totally get what you're saying. Like my wife's a teacher. And being a high school teacher is insane these days. Right. The amount of stuff that kids are dealing with and everything. And, there's days like my wife was on maternity leave for 2 years with our youngest kid. And I was just like, why do you want to go back? Like we could probably make this work, and you could stay with the kids and it would just be so great, because you could be home and it would just make life so much easier. Right. And she's like, I just love the kids so much, and there's so much reward. She gets so much like personal satisfaction and reward when the kids come back. Like we see like kids that have graduated 5 years later and like, Madame, I love you. You were my favorite teacher. And like this happens like over and over and over. And I'm with her. It's like, we'll go to Superstore. We'll go to like, food fair or whatever to pick up whatever. And they're like, Madame, I love you. I just love it. And she gets cards and she gets things. And she's just like, even at the time when she's teaching, like 3 years later, she'll get something from a kid and she'd be like, that kid never spoke a day to me in the entire time. And she's just said I was her favorite teacher. And I'm just like, she gets blown away by this stuff all the time. So yeah, I can completely understand.
That is a good, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to mention this and you just reminded me about that person that epitomizes that to like the 100% whatever. Kathy Driscoll.
Oh yeah.
She is, I wish, like, this is going to maybe sound, I wish I could get recognized in an award capacity, not because I would want that award or I want that thing. It's so I could say, you are the reason I'm up here.
Right.
There are other people like Dylan, obviously, that I continue to work with.
No, she's great. I worked with her for like 6 years at New Media Manitoba. She's amazing. No, she's a great person.
And like she was one of the first people that I more consistently worked with. And I would like to recognize people like her specifically and people like that more than I have been able to. Yeah. Because they have like such a big impact, like your wife has with her students. Yeah. But yeah, like taking it all, sort of rounding it up. That is the most satisfying thing in the world. And that's why I put all my time and energy into these kind of things,
Well, I think it's great. I mean, like, things like the Winnitron wouldn't have been born
Right.
Unless it was for people taking the effort to bring people together. And I mean, I remember the whole time I was with New Media Manitoba, and they're like, well, what can we do to like, foster more stuff? And like, obviously there's like government initiatives and like big blah, 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 blah things that you can do. And like,
it's accurate.
Yeah, the blah, 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 like that's kind of just turns into mush in my head, right? But like what always stuck out for me was just bringing people together. If you bring awesome people together enough and their heads kind of like bounce together enough times, sometimes, a nice little spark will come out of that.
I almost don't even like talking about it because to me, it seems like not like when you're talking about, oh, I've done this thing and I've done this thing, I don't like sort of acknowledging that because it
well, someone has to do it.
I just like to have the results speak for themselves rather than me. Like I almost don't like when I mentioned like wanting to win or wanting to get an award for a type of thing. Like I really don't tell a lot of people that because it seems very like.
Well, you want to be able to thank the people you want that have got you to
honestly,
where you are. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to like emphasize that it's because of that. Because I wanted to rip off a piece of the statue and give it to that person. Rip off another piece and give it to that person. Yeah.
You just have them all on your podcast and you can thank them in person.
Yeah. I actually have all of those people on.
No, Kathy would be great. Kathy's history is amazing too. I mean,
she's at Bold now, eh?
Yes, she is a Bold. Yeah, she got her start in the film industry too, doing casting.
Oh, this that reminds me. One of the first interactions I had with Kathy was she had met me somewhere. I can't remember. And the second time she met me, she goes, "Oh, hey, Daniel." I was like, "What?" like that was when you talk about moments where you like pivot or whatever. Right. That was like a pivot moment where like, okay, you are someone that cares.
Oh yeah.
She's like, she remembered my name.
Oh yeah. Well, she has a talent for that because she sees like, I mean, back in the day she would see 1,000 people, right?
And I try and do that. Like I took that moment and I try and apply it to people. Like the 50th game meetup that we have. Yeah. Jake Kerrick walked in and be like, "Oh, hey, Jake." And then there's another person I hadn't seen in a long time. Jim Thompson, a teacher at Kildonan East. Yeah. They'll go, "Hey, Jim." And, it's just like, I just come up.
I wish I had that talent. I am horrible with names. And it's gotten worse with time as my brain gets filled with Twitter.
That's a whole thing.
It's why is 90% of my brain just useless tweets and GIFs now? It's just, God. Yeah. And the other 5% is Reddit, and I'm just like, I need to do a purge at some point here.
But yeah, so like pretty much everything we talked about was the things I was more interested in. But there's another aspect of the things that you're involved in now, like through the game trailers and all the VR trailers. I would say, from my perspective, the job simulator trailer stuff is some of the more visible things that I've seen of the stuff that you've worked on and been responsible for. So I don't know how you can talk about what that experience has been like, being involved in all these sort of visible.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm kind of invisible to the whole process to a degree, but I mean, like, it all got started with Winnitron, obviously. I mean, like, with that first Cannibal 2-player trailer. Like, I'll tell you the exact series of events. Like, it's very obvious. So it's like I did the Cannibal trailer. That went well. And then Rami knew Alec. Rami was still working at his, like, computer sales job, like, back then, if you can even imagine that he did such a thing, which is insane to even think about. But that was, like, less than 10 years ago. No, anyway, he was working his computer sales job and working on, Super Crate Box, and he got us the 2-player version of Super Crate Box. And so I ended up doing the trailer for that, right? And so I met Rami, and we were all in Skype in the big chat, doing that whole thing, right? And so then Rami, time goes by, I do a couple other little trailers and things. Then Rami is doing a game with Devolver, and he's doing the Serious Sam, the Random Encounter for Devolver, because Devolver wanted to get a couple indie guys to do, like, different versions of Serious Sam, but like in an indie game style. So Rami pitched him this ridiculous idea, and Nigel, being the brilliant person he is, said yes. And then Rami was like, "Oh crap, we actually have to build this game." And so anyway, in the end, so since Rami knew that I had made a trailer for, like, the Super Crate Box thing, and, like, it had all these cool visual effects and it looked awesome, he's like, "Hey, Nigel, you should talk to Kert." about doing a trailer for this. And then, so he's like, hey, I still have the email. I'm like, in my archives, it's just like, hey, we want to do this thing. And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do that. And I quoted him like with this ridiculously low price for what it was. And Nigel was so nice. He's like, you need to like charge more for this. Like, this is worth way more than what, Right. So it's like, we'll pay you some more money and we'll get you to do this one extra thing and then we'll call it even. And so anyway, so I met Nigel through that. And, I did like this visual effects oriented trailer where like the Serious Sam characters are in like the desert that's just, west of Winnipeg here, and I shot all the footage and tracked it all in and cranked it out in like 2 weeks, and it turned out pretty good. And so then I started working with Nigel, and I think the next one was like I met Nigel at GDC. He was like, hey, we should talk and meet up. And so the next game was like Hotline Miami, right? And so that was like the big breakout game for Devolver, and I did the gameplay trailers for that. They had somebody else do the live action trailer because it was just too big of a scope for what I could do at the time. Mm-hmm. So, and then basically, through Rami, through Adam, like Adam got me to do the trailer for the Hunger Games game that he was working on contract. And so like a couple of these things just kind of started to fall in place, right? And then basically it got to the point where I was getting enough work, game trailer work, that I was like, I am like really struggling to balance being a new dad, doing New Media Manitoba, and doing all of these trailers. And it was right at the time where it's like my wife was pregnant with our second kid. And it's just like, when we have 2 kids, like something's got to give. Like this, one of these things has to go. I either have to stop being a dad, which isn't an option, stop doing game trailers, or stop doing New Media Manitoba. And I mean, the only obvious choice was stop doing the New Media Manitoba stuff. Right. And I talked to Kevin, and he was just like, dude, of course you have to do this. Like there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He was just like, of course this is what you have to do. You have to do this.
It's fortunate to again, like we've already discussed it, but like to have people like that and to have jobs like that, it's not like, it's not common.
No,
to have that.
No,
every job has been pretty flexible. Even the ones like I worked at Skip the Dishes, and I had pretty large degree of flexibility there as well. Yeah. So I've always been super fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely stressful for like a certain amount of time where I was juggling too much. Yeah. So I mean, that all kind of came to a head, and it was like, all right, I'm just gonna stop New Media Manitoba, and then Devolver was basically like, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll pay you a retainer. So that's basically like, they pay me a salary essentially, to work on their stuff. And so whenever Devolver stuff comes up, they have like the bat phone essentially. It's like, and it's like, we need the trailer stat. It's like, okay. And I get in the Batmobile and go into the basement and do their trailer, right? So, and then all the other work, I try to just balance that. And so that's basically what the last like couple years has been, like I can't remember how many years it's been now that it's just been full-time game trailers, but maybe like 4 or 5, 3, 4, 5, more than 3. It's got to be 4 or 5 years at this point.
Where do you see like things moving forward in the next like few years, or you just keep focusing on game trailers for now? And
I'm gonna keep riding this as long as I can, because it's amazing. Like just being able to work on all this stuff it's a childhood dream, honestly. It's like get to work in the video game industry doing video stuff, and I can actually contribute in a way that I don't see other people doing, and so I love it. At the same time, balancing all this stuff is difficult. I mean, like the last year specifically was actually like a really, really tough year for me personally, just because like my oldest son was 5 at the time. He was in half-day kindergarten, and so I sort of had him at home in the afternoons. Right. And so I'm trying to work and doing drop-offs and pickups and dealing with sick kids and, kids that are 5 and, having tantrums and not always behaving properly, and trying to work and like be creative, quote unquote, and like trying to get into the zone and doing all this stuff. It was really tough. And on top of that, I was also like doing the IGF and like Choice Awards stuff with the game trailer stuff. And last year's IGF and Choice Awards was like the biggest, most complex one we have ever done. And so managing all that together, I just like at the end of that, by March of like this year, when it was all kind of done, I was just like, I'm done. I needed to take a break. So I talked to the people that run the IGF and Choice. Like, again, I sort of looked at all the things I was doing, right? Okay, I'm a dad, I have 2 kids, I have a wife, and I'm doing game trailers with Devolver, I'm doing other game trailers, and I'm doing IGF, And so I'm looking at all these things, and it's like, I am making myself I'm like in not good physical shape, I'm just like, I'm sitting in a chair 8 hours a day, I'm starting to like not sleep well, and I'm stressed out all the time, and that's making me a bad dad, because it's like, everything's kind of bleeding over, right? I'm like, what can I just pull out just to like get more time? Because I just like every single second of your day is occupied, right? So I looked at it all and I'm like, okay, maybe I can just not do IGF for a year because that basically occupies all of my free time from September to like March.
Who does IGF now?
So there's another company that I sort of work with. Once I'm done all the graphical stuff, I send it off to this company in San Francisco called Dawn Runner. And they handle, like, they do everything else. They get all the gameplay footage and they do all the nominee packages and they do it all. So as far as I know, I actually haven't talked to them in a couple months. So they're doing it this year.
Okay, cool.
And then I should hopefully be able to pick it up again next year. So we'll see. But yeah, basically I talked to them. I went to GDC and I talked to the person that runs the show, and I'm just like, here, this is where things are at right now. I'm like kind of burnt out.
I'm sure they probably understood.
Oh, they totally did. And she's just like, Sandesh is just the most wonderful human ever. And so I'm just like, this, like, I'm just like, I'm kind of burnt out this year. I need a break. Is this okay? Will you guys let me take a break? They're like, no, get it back in the cave. Obviously they didn't say that. So yeah, so I'm not doing IGF this year. And so it's been great. I'm just like, I'm just doing Devolver stuff, just being a dad, being a husband, and doing the odd VR trailer that comes around because I love doing the VR trailers. They are so much fun. The last one I did was the Space Channel 5 trailer. It just came out Oh man, that one was just, I had so much fun doing that. But it was like, I was really nervous about it too because I cold emailed them because I knew they were doing the Space Channel 5 VR game. And I'm like, oh God. It's just like, if they do a bad trailer for Space Channel 5, I could not live with myself. Like, it was just like, this game deserves a good try. I love Space Channel 5. I love the universe that they've created there. And so I just emailed, like, there's an info@ email address on their website. And I'm just like, all right, I'll give this a shot. So I emailed them, didn't hear anything back for 3 months. And I'm like, well, at least I tried. I DM'd on Twitter and everything. I did some other things too. Never heard anything back. And then I'm at camp, like with my family. And I'm just, I check my email in the morning and, I'm just like, boop, holy crap, there's an email from Japan. And I'm just like, oh my God. And it's like, I'm like, can't get cell service. I've got like half a bar. I'm like, I got to go just send one email and I'll be right back. And so, yeah, I emailed them like, I'm on vacation with my family but I'll be back and, and I'll want to work on this. And so, and I guess like, the other funny thing about that is I guess like in Japan, they don't really take vacation, right? And so like I took like a month off. Like I took all of July off just to kind of like, rebuild a little bit. And so they're like emailing me after like a week. It's like, okay, we're wondering where things are at. And it's like, no, dude, I'm still gone. Like I won't be back for a while. Right. Like I'm taking like some real time off here, right? So anyway, it ended up all working out fine. But yeah, so it was just, that was kind of funny. So yeah, I'm basically just doing the odd VR trailer right now. I'm not doing IGF, and with the quote unquote extra time that I have, I'm like going to the gym. I'm like getting our like to-do list around the house finished. It's been like the last 2 weeks, my kid just started school like full-time grade 1 now. My youngest son is in daycare full days. So it's like I have like 6 hours every day. And I'm just like, holy crap, like this is the first time in 6 years where I've had 6 hours of uninterrupted time where I can do stuff. So it's just like, first, okay, I need to get my physical body, like my mental.
Yeah, right.
It's huge. So
a lot of times people neglect those things.
Oh, and I have been. It's just like my back has been killing me, It's like I'm not in a horrible shape, by any stretch, but it's just like my back's been killing me. I've not been sleeping well. It's just like, waking up 10 times a night, just casting and turning and stuff. And so I just need to get like that kind of dealt with. And so I've been going to the gym since like March and it's been great. We've seen like a trainer. It's like the best thing ever. And that's been life-changing so far. And it's been really, really good. So I'm just trying to deal with the physical, health, mental health as well. Just like getting time to actually like, think about things because, when you're a parent and you're a dad, there's like a crisis every 10 minutes. I mean, the kid's crying because he tripped over something. Oh, he's about to eat the thing he shouldn't be eating. Oh, he's crying because his brother took the thing. And it's like you're constantly just dealing with things all the time. So there's no time to like think and have like mental clarity. At least what I found. Anyway, maybe my kids are crazy, but I don't know. But no, I have 2 great kids. But just having just like more blocks of time where it's just, you can just sit and think about things. I'm really looking forward. I can't wait to do some tutorials, just like, learn some new skills and just like do a couple, play with some new After Effects plugins because I totally miss doing that. So that's kind of where I'm at for this year, and I'm just really taking it easy just to sort of rebuild myself a bit. I just turned 40 too, so I'm not like the youngest dude. I got to start taking care of my physical health and mental health a little bit more than I have in the past like 10 years, right? So I think that's really important. So I want to kind of start off this next decade on the right foot. So
when you, a little bit, I guess in closing here, when you kind of look back at all the things that you've been through, what lessons have you learned and what like moments stand out to you?
Gosh.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah, it's a lot to process. You know, I mean, like, there's a few big things, obviously. I can't really say like a specific moment or a specific conversation or something.
Right.
I don't think it's as like, you know, it's not as magical as that. But I think it's like...
Or maybe more so, what have you like learned from your experiences?
Just be nice. You know, put yourself out there.
Like it's simple.
Yeah,
it's
really
very simple.
Oh, it's super simple. Don't be a dick. You know, if my kid can grow up and just not be a dick to anybody, oh my God, that's huge. You know, because there's so many idiots out there. There's so many people with like horrible motives and just like selfish people and just things like that. Just don't be that kind of person. You know, put yourself out there. You know, like, you know, I'm a pretty cynical guy about some certain things, but don't be a cynical, like, ass, you know? Like, just be positive. Like, I'm a very, very positive person, but I have opinions about things. But overall, you know, just be a positive person.
We'll talk about those things off air.
Yeah, exactly. No, but honestly, no. It's just being positive about things and just being a positive force and a positive influence on people. I think just something as simple as that is really, really huge. I mean, like, going back to, like, work experience and job experience, I mean, and things like that, like, you know, working at Frantic and being able to work on, you know, like, 25-plus Hollywood movies, I mean, like, that was incredible. Like, it sucks that doesn't exist anymore. The company's not around and nobody else can have that experience, right? Mm-hmm. But being able to do something like that in Winnipeg without having to move to, like, Vancouver or Toronto or something is huge. It's super huge. So that was, like a huge part of, like, where I am today, you know? There's... like that, and the Winnitron obviously is like a gigantic part of that as well. So
I like to end with a little bit of a loaded question.
I know. I've listened to these podcasts. I was wondering what you were gonna throw at me, so I'm like, all right, let's have it.
I forgot about it. Like, I forgot that I have other episodes online.
Prepare yourself, future episodes, people that'll be on.
I was like too present to like remember, like, oh, this isn't a surprise anymore.
No.
But if you could look back on your life, and one example I give is like if you're at the pearly gates, what would you like to have been said about your life?
Oh God, that's a good one. But the first thing that comes to my mind is that I was a good dad. You know, I just want to be a good dad to my kids. You know. Like honestly, the game trailer stuff is like, you know, that's a part of my life.
Great, yeah.
My life is being a dad, you know, and we didn't really talk about that much here, but I mean, like, that is the majority of my life, is being a dad to my children and trying to, you know, raise them in a good way. And yeah, the game trailers is what I do for work, and I absolutely love it to death, and I wouldn't change anything, and I'm super passionate, and I love it, and I'll talk about it endlessly. But if I can be a good dad to my kids, and my kids would say, yeah, I love my dad, and he was great, and we did cool stuff. That's what I would hope for.
I think that's probably the perfect point to end on. Yeah, so I wanted to thank you for your time, because everything here, the podcast, it's possible thanks to like all of the different cool, creative, kind, nice people in the community, you being one of those. People are volunteering their time out of their day. You know, like you said, you have a family. So for you to be able to set some time away to, you know, chat and get to know each other better. And then I can put that on the podcast, and then other people can get to know your story a little better. And then I feel like that brings our community closer together, which is kind of what the goal of this podcast is.
Totally.
So I wanted to thank you for your time. Is there anywhere like online people can like follow your stuff? Or?
Yeah, I'm pretty Googleable, and just like KertGartner.com, at Kert Gartner on Twitter. But it's okay. I'll tell you one more short story. Okay. So my name is spelt weird. It's Kert, right? So people always ask me, it's like, that's a really weird spelling of Kurt, right? And so how did you get that? And it's like, the story is my dad is a big Star Trek fan, right? And so he had a Star Trek poster in his bedroom. And he was looking at the Star Trek poster through the mirror one day, and Trek spelt backwards as Kurt. And so so that's how I got the spelling of my name, the weird Kert, right? So
I actually want to get one more question in here.
Yeah, totally.
Considering, again, everything that you've been through, how are you going to guide your kids through the things that they're passionate about, or how do you like look at that?
I just try to, whatever they are into, we are into, you know, and that's how we've kind of been.
Just be supportive.
Just be supportive. Yeah, totally. I mean, like with kids this young, I mean, that changes every 3 months. but it's still like it's fun because it's like my kids, like, you know, they see me working on these trailers, right? And so like my kids are into video games, especially like my 6-year-old, right? No, it was so great. Just even this morning, it's like my 3-year-old is like, Daddy, can we play Mario Kart? We play Mario Kart because like they have added that awesome mode in like the Mario Kart Switch where it basically just plays for you. You just hold A and the car will just drive and he can go like this and he'll stay on the course. And it's like, oh man, that was so great for like a 3-year-old. So, but yeah, just trying to, you know, show them that it's like, you know, especially like no one really told me when I was a kid, it's like video games can be a job, you know, and it's like, and you can do these things. And like, I try to explain that to him about certain things. It's like, he's really into like, he was really into fish for like a while. And we had like the ocean life book. And it's just like, you know, you can like, there's people that like, you know, study fish and you can do this and just sort of saying, hey, like, look, there's all these different things that you can do. If this is something you're into, we'll dive right into it and figure out whatever little nugget is of that kind of thing that you really, really like. But yeah, that changes all the time. Like he's into Lego and he's into building. He is like, oh my God, my 6-year-old, I could talk about him forever. Right? He builds the coolest little like Lego creations. There's like these great Lego sets are called Mixels. You can't buy them anymore, but they're like these $5 bags and they're Mixels. And you put these characters together, and then after he's done putting them together, you always have like, you know, a pile of spare parts. So he creates characters called spare parts, and he makes these little tiny characters out of just like nothing, and they're so great. I take a bunch of pictures of them with my phone because I just want to save them for when he's older. Yeah, because they're so great. But it, like, you know, just sort of show me you can like design characters, you can do these things, you know, and you can draw them, and you can like he's starting to like make his own video games now. And he just showed me this thing this morning. He had like pieces of paper that was like player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4.
That's cool.
Yeah, and he's like handing them out and he's like starting to like come up with ideas. He's like, I want to make Super Kirby Odyssey. You know, his whole room is just wall to wall Kirby's, right? And so, yeah, we just try to be supportive and not hammer it down. I mean, the only thing that I think we are doing is like, you know, we're very cognizant of the amount of time that he is playing video games.
Right.
Because, I mean, like, it's insane what he has access to now versus what I had, you know? Like, I didn't get a Game Boy, you know, until, like, when was the Game Boy released? Like, in the mid-'80s or something like that, or late 80s, 89, around there somewhere. And, I mean, like, he has a Nintendo Switch which has, like, all this stuff. And so, like, he can get absorbed into this stuff in a level that I don't think we could as kids. And so I see that, and I see him kind of like there's a balancing act I think to be played there. Like I said before, I wouldn't let my kids play as much video games as I did when I was a kid because they're so much more immersive. And I mean, like, I only let them play like, you know, non-violent games and things like that, and I only expose them to that kind of stuff. So I can't remember what the original question was now.
How would you like influence your kids?
Yeah, how would I influence? Yeah, just, you know, you just try to be supportive in whatever they're into. Right. But I mean, you definitely do still have to guide them, especially because, you know, it's a bit more of a minefield now these days. It's like I see like kids that are like a year or two older than I'm talking about playing Fortnite, and I'm just like, I don't know if I want my kid playing Fortnite. Like, you know, that just doesn't sit well with me. So I just won't talk about Fortnite, you know? You know, and like, it's not a game that I'm into at all in any way. So that really helps. It's not like I'm sneaking and playing it at night, or he sees the icon on the Switch or something. It just doesn't exist in his world because it's not something I'm into. I'm into like really super cute indie games. When I saw Katamari was coming out for the Switch, I was just like, oh, I can't wait to play Katamari with my kid. That is going to be so great. So, you know, you just try to guide them in a way that, you know, you feel is right, I guess.
Great. Yeah, I guess, again, in closing.
Premature closing.
I wanted to thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
It's great to have different people. Again, people can follow you at KertGartner.com.
Yes.
And that you'll have like links to pretty much everything.
Yeah, pretty much everything. I'm mainly active on Twitter. There's just at Kert Gartner on Twitter. I don't really post to Facebook much anymore. I kind of just lurk. Okay. I have an Instagram account that I post pictures of my kids, but I'm pretty selective about who I let in. It's a private account, so unless I know you, I won't let you in probably, or met you in person, because it's all just pictures of my kids. That's all it literally is. If you want to follow other game stuff, just follow me on Twitter. That's where that all is.
Outside of that, there's so many different like things and people that contribute to making this happen. Daniel Bergman, who actually happens to be sitting in on this podcast.
Been very patient.
That's great. I love it.
So it's nice to be able to do something, but it's even greater to have a bunch of people contribute it. Myself, You being on, the people listening, Daniel helping to edit. Someone made the logo for me. I would like to, everything I'm working towards is to retroactively thank these people for contributing and make it a sustainable thing. So you can catch this. We have a website, interactiveindie.com. We have like a whole bunch of episodes up there now. We have a bunch in the backlog. So every other week on Wednesday, a new episode will come out, and you can tune into our different social media, Interactive Indie Podcast social media through the website. And yeah, I think that's about it. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.